A single mom pulls over on a stormy night and helps a crying biker she finds alone on the side of the road. He looks rough, dangerous even, but when he wipes away his tears and thanks her, she feels something she can't explain. She brings him home, gives him food, and shows him kindness the world long forgot. For a moment, it feels like maybe good hearts can heal broken ones. Until the sheriff shows up at her door and says 7 words that shatter everything. "Ma'am, that man's a Hell's Angels captain. The man she pitied is the one everyone fears. But what if the world's most feared biker was just a broken soldier trying to find his way home? And what if her kindness is the only thing that can save him, before his past comes roaring back to destroy them both? Would you risk everything to believe in someone no one else would? Drop a comment below and share which part of the world you're tuning in from today. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The rain came down in silver sheets, hammering the windshield so hard that Emma Callahan could barely see the road ahead. Her old pickup rattled each time the wind hit. She leaned closer to the wheel, squinting through the blur of rain and wipers. Beside her in the back seat, her 8-year-old son, Luke, slept curled up in his seat, his head resting on his jacket like a pillow. It had been another long shift at the diner. Her feet ached. The tips had been small. Still, she whispered a quiet prayer of thanks for the extra hours. It was just another night on the back roads of Montana, until she saw him. At first, she thought the shadow ahead was just a broken fence post, but then the lightning flashed, and she caught the shape of a motorcycle and a man beside it. He was kneeling in the mud, his shoulders shaking. Emma slowed down without thinking. Her heart thudded. "Oh, Lord," she murmured. She had been warned plenty of times about stopping for strangers. Out here, it could mean trouble. But something about that man, his slumped back, the way he held his face in his hands, made her hesitate. It wasn't the stance of someone dangerous. It was the posture of someone broken. The wipers squeaked again. She looked at Luke, still sleeping, peaceful and unaware. Then she sighed and pulled over. The truck came to a stop with a shudder, headlights spilling over the man and the rain. She rolled down the window a crack. "Hey, you okay out there?" she called out. The man looked up. Rain dripped from his beard, his dark hair plastered to his forehead. He had eyes that seemed older than his face, worn, tired, and lost. "My bike," he said hoarsely. "It quit on me. Do you need a ride?" He hesitated. "You sure?" Emma nodded, even though she wasn't. Something about his voice, low, cracked, almost apologetic, calmed her. When he climbed in, the cab filled with the scent of wet leather and cold air. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with tattoos down his forearms. His hands trembled slightly as he shut the door. Luke stirred in the back seat and blinked sleepily. "Who's that, Mama?" "Just someone who needs help, baby," Emma said softly. The man turned and gave a small, uncertain smile. "Hey, kid. Sorry for the mess." Luke yawned. "That's okay. You look sad." The man chuckled once, a sound that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Guess I am." Emma drove in silence for a few miles. The wipers made their steady rhythm. Swish, swish, swish. She noticed the man rubbing his hands together, trying to warm them. "You can call me Emma," she said finally. "And that's Luke." He nodded. "Jax," he replied simply. "Thanks for stopping." "Not many folks would have," she said. He stared out the window. "Yeah, I've learned that." When they reached her small house near the edge of town, Emma parked beside the porch. The light from the kitchen window spilled onto the rain-soaked ground. Jax looked uncertain. "You can come inside to dry off," she said, surprising herself. There's soup left from dinner. You don't have to do that. I know, she said, opening her door, but I'm doing it anyway. Inside, Luke ran ahead and switched on the heater. Jax stood near the door, dripping on the mat, his boots leaving muddy prints. He looked like a man who hadn't been welcome anywhere for a long time. Emma handed him a towel and gestured to the chair by the table. Sit, I'll get you some food. He muttered a thank you and sat awkwardly, shoulders hunched, eyes lowered. His leather jacket was worn, the emblem on the back faded and torn. When she placed the bowl of soup in front of him, his hands shook slightly as he lifted the spoon. This is real kind, he said. It's just soup. Not the soup, he said quietly. The kindness. Emma felt something in her chest tighten. She wasn't sure why, but she could tell this man had been through something heavy, something that left scars deeper than the ones on his hands. After he ate, Luke brought him a blanket from the couch. Mama says you can stay till the storm's gone, the boy said. Jax looked up, surprised. That's mighty nice of her. Luke grinned. She always helps people, even stray dogs. That made Jax laugh. The first real laugh she'd heard from him. It was rough but warm. Guess that makes me the dog tonight. Emma smiled faintly. Just don't bite. Later, after Luke went to bed, Emma stood by the window, listening to the wind calm down. Jax sat across the room, staring into the fire she'd lit. The flickering light softened his features. He looked younger, almost gentle. Where were you headed? She asked quietly. He took a long breath. Nowhere, really. Just riding. Trying to forget a few things. She nodded. We all have things like that. He looked up at her. You too? Her eyes met his. Yeah, she said simply. Me too. For a moment, neither spoke. The rain eased outside, the world growing still. When she finally went to bed, Emma left the door to the guest room open. She paused to glance in before turning off the light. Jax was already asleep on top of the covers, boots off, arms crossed. Even in rest, there was tension in him, the kind that comes from years of waiting for something bad to happen. Emma whispered a small prayer under her breath. She didn't know who this man really was or what pain he carried. But she knew this. Kindness was never wasted. Outside, the storm passed, leaving behind the soft hush of dripping trees. Inside, a single act of compassion had begun to change everything, though none of them knew it yet. Morning came soft and pale, the sky washed clean by the storm. Emma woke to the smell of wet pine and the faint tick of the baseboard heater. For a second, she did not remember the man in her guest room. Then she heard a low cough and the creak of floorboards, and it came back. The rain, the broken bike, the careful eyes of a stranger who looked like trouble, but sounded like sorrow. She slipped on her robe and padded down the hall. The guest room door stood half open. Jax was awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with his jacket folded beside him. He had cleaned the mud from his boots and stacked them neatly by the door, as if afraid to make a mess. When he saw her, he stood fast, almost like a soldier being called to attention. Morning, she said, voice quiet so she would not wake Luke. How'd you sleep? He rubbed the back of his neck. Better than I have in a while. Thanks. Kitchen's this way, she said. I'll make coffee. He followed her into the small kitchen with the sunflower curtains and dented kettle. The light over the sink cast a warm yellow glow. Emma measured grounds and set a skillet on the stove. Soon the room filled with the rich smell of coffee and the sweet, homely scent of frying butter. She cracked eggs and sliced bread, while Jax stood near the doorway, hands tucked under his arms like he wasn't sure he had permission to relax. "Sit," she said, nodding to the table. "You're not a stray dog. You can sit." That made him grin. He took the chair closest to the window and stared out at the white breath of morning fog lifting off the yard. After a moment, he said, "I can help. I can cook. I used to make breakfast for a whole crew at the shop." "I've got it," she said. "You can wash dishes after." A shadow of mock horror crossed his face. Cruel. She slid him a steaming mug. He cupped it in both hands, shut his eyes, and breathed in as if the smell itself steadied him. "This is church right here," he murmured. "Say grace if you want," she said. "I say mine in my head." He bowed his head without fuss. It was a short, simple prayer. When he looked up again, the hard line of his jaw had eased. He ate like a man who had not had a real breakfast in a long time, slow at first, then with a kind of quiet hunger. He said, "Thank you," after each plate, like he was afraid the food might disappear before the next bite. By the time Luke's door opened and little feet thumped down the hall, the kitchen felt easy, like the corners had softened. Luke's hair stuck up in a blonde storm, and his pajamas were 2 inches too short. He froze when he saw Jax at the table, then lit up. "You're still here?" Luke said, a smile crowding his face. "Storm let me borrow one more morning," Jax said. "Do you ride your motorcycle in the snow?" Luke asked, climbing into his chair. "Not if I want to keep all my bones," Jax said. "Snow and bikes don't get along." Luke giggled and reached for the syrup. "Can I see it later?" "If we can get her to start," Jax said, glancing at Emma. "I didn't mean to leave it on the road. I can go tow it back with a buddy or—" "We'll figure it out," Emma said. "Eat first." They ate together, and the kitchen filled with fork clinks and chair scrapes and small talk. It felt almost normal. But normal had sharp edges. When the plates were empty and the coffee gone, reality walked back in and took a seat. "What's your plan for today?" Emma asked, rinsing the skillet. "Well," Jax said, rolling his shoulders as if warming up for a fight. "I should get that bike off the shoulder before someone calls a tow. I can try to fix it here if that's all right. If not, I'll push it into town." "You can use the shed," Emma said. "Tools aren't much, but there's a jack and some wrenches." He blinked, surprised. "You serious?" "You can't fix a bike with your hands in your pockets," she said. "Besides, that road is not safe." Luke bounced in his chair. "Can I help?" "You can hand me tools," Jax said. "Only if your mom says yes." Emma gave a half smile. "Homework first after school. Tools after." While Luke brushed his teeth and got dressed for the bus, Emma stood at the sink with Jax and washed dishes while he dried. They worked in a steady rhythm. Plate, towel, shelf, cup, towel, shelf. He moved careful, almost tender with her old chipped plates, like each one might break if he breathed too hard. "You said you worked at a shop?" she asked. "Couple shops," he said. "Small places. Did some custom work. I'm better with engines than people." "You're doing fine with people," she said. "Only because you fed me," he answered, mouth quirking. When the bus groaned up the hill, they walked Luke to the road. The air smelled of damp earth and something sweet from the neighbor's lilacs. Luke hugged Jax without warning, arms clutching his middle. "Come back after school," Luke said into his jacket. "Don't leave." Jax's eyes softened. He crouched to Luke's height. "I still got that birdhouse to help you build, right?" Luke nodded hard. "Right." "I'll be here," Jax said. The bus pulled away with a sigh and a wave. For a long second, Emma and Jax stood in the gravel, watching the yellow box shrink to a dot. Then Jax cleared his throat and looked toward the road where his motorcycle waited like a wounded animal. "I'll walk down and get her," he said. "It's only a mile." Emma grabbed her keys. I'll drive you. No sense walking if we've got wheels. They picked up the bike, its chrome speckled with dried rain. Up close, Emma saw the careful way Jax touched it, like a farmer checking a favorite horse. He talked soft to the machine under his breath. Not words Emma recognized, more like comfort. Back at the house, he rolled the bike into the shed. The shed smelled of oil, cedar, and old snow shovels. Dust floated in the shafts of light. Jax set to work right away, sleeves pushed up, muscles in his forearms tight as ropes. Want company? Emma asked from the doorway. If you don't mind, he said, crouching by the engine. I talk better when my hands are busy. So she pulled up a milk crate and sat. She handed him a socket wrench. He loosened bolts and checked lines, his movements neat and sure. Every so often he paused, listening to the metal like it might speak back. Where'd you learn all this? She asked. My dad, he said. We didn't have much money, so we made what we had last. Later, the shop. Later than that, just me. He did not look at her when he said the last part. His voice was even, but the air around the words felt heavy. Emma let the silence stand a while, and the quiet became gentle instead of cold. By noon, he had the tank off and the carburetor set on a towel like a patient in surgery. She sucked in water, he said. Storm didn't help. I can clean it out. Might take a few hours. You hungry? She asked. I'm fine. She raised an eyebrow. That wasn't a question. He chuckled. Yes, ma'am. They ate grilled cheese on the back steps, the kind with crispy edges that crackled when you bit them. The sky turned a bright, washed blue. Birds shouted from the fence. When they finished, Jax wiped his hands and stared at the field, like it was the first good thing he'd seen in a while. I used to think quiet meant trouble was coming, he said. Now I think quiet might be the gift. Emma studied his profile, the strong nose, the scar along his jaw, the faraway look. You can have quiet here, she said, if you want it. He swallowed. Careful, he said softly. I might believe you. The afternoon slipped by in patient work. Emma ran to the diner for her shift, the early one today, and left a note taped to the shed door that said, Back by 3. There's lemonade in the fridge. Jax kept at the bike. Every so often he stepped into the kitchen, poured lemonade into a jar, and stood in the doorway like he wasn't sure the house still welcomed him. It did. At 2:55, the bus returned. Luke came down the hill at a run, backpack thumping, voice bright. Did you fix it? Did you fix it? He shouted before he'd even cleared the gate. Almost, Jack said, smiling for real now. Want to hand me the wrench? Luke planted his feet like a proud assistant. Emma watched from the porch as the two of them leaned over the gleaming engine. One small, one strong, both intent. The world felt steady again, at least for this hour. By late afternoon, Jax wiped his hands and turned the key. The bike coughed, then caught, engine humming low and sure. Luke jumped up and down, whooping. Emma laughed, clapped once, and felt something warm loosen in her chest. You did it, she said. We did it, Jax answered, eyes on the boy. Then he looked at Emma, and the thanks in his face was plain as daylight. I can't pay you for the shed and the food. You already did, she said, nodding to her truck. You fixed my pickup. It shifts smooth now. Haven't heard that sound in months. He shrugged, shy. It was a loose belt. Still, she said. Thank you. Evening slid in with a soft gold light. They ate a simple supper, chili and cornbread, at the small table. Luke told a long story about a spelling test and a class hamster who kept escaping. Jax listened like every word mattered. When dishes were done, they stepped onto the porch. The air had that cool bite that meant fall was close. I should head out after dark, Jack said at last, voice careful again. "You've done more than enough." "You have a place to go?" Emma asked. He took a long breath. "I'll figure it out." She looked at the road, then at the man who had walked into her kitchen out of the rain and somehow made the place feel more alive. "There's the couch," she said. "One more night. You can look for work tomorrow, or not. It's your call." He stared at her like he could not find the right shelf in his head to put this kindness on. Finally, he nodded once. "All right. One more night." They went inside as the sky went purple. Emma turned off the porch light. In the quiet dark, the house breathed with them. A mother, a child, and a stranger who did the dishes and fixed old engines and said a plain prayer over coffee. None of them said the word family. None of them had to. And far down the road, where the highway bent out of sight, a patrol car rolled by slow, its blue stripe catching the last of the light before it disappeared into the coming night. By the third morning, the house felt strangely right with Jack's in it, like an extra chair had always been waiting at the table. Emma woke early, made coffee, and watched from the window as he tinkered with the old fence near the chicken coop. The sun was only a pale blush behind the mountains, the grass still heavy with dew. Jax worked quiet and focused, sleeves rolled up, hammer moving, steady. When he caught her looking, he gave a small nod, like a man learning how to smile again. Luke ran out the door before breakfast, shoes untied, hair flying. "Mr. Jax, you said we could build the birdhouse today." Jax laughed, a deep, rusty sound that filled the yard. "A promise is a promise, kiddo, but your mom says chores first." Luke groaned, but grabbed the feed bucket anyway. Emma smiled into her mug. By the time she left for the diner, the air smelled of sawdust and pancakes. She paused in the doorway. "You'll be all right here?" "We'll be fine," Jack said. "Go make your money, boss." At work, things were slower than usual. Emma wiped down counters, refilled sugar jars, and tried not to think too much about the man back at her house. When Sally Harper, her friend and co-worker, slid onto the next stool during the lull, she leaned close and whispered, "So who's the guy fixing your fence?" Emma blinked. "How'd you—" "Small towns, honey. Somebody saw him buying nails at the hardware store. Big guy, tattoos, beard like a bear. You letting him stay at your place?" Emma's cheeks warmed. "He just needed a place for the night. His bike broke down." Sally raised her brows. "You sure he ain't trouble?" "He's polite, handy, good with Luke." "That's what they all say before they find their wallet missing," Sally muttered, but her voice was half teasing. "Just be careful, Em. Folks are talking already." Emma sighed. She'd expected that. In this town, a woman couldn't sneeze without someone mentioning it at church. Still, she knew what she'd seen. A man who looked lost, not dangerous. When her shift ended, she stopped by the grocery store. On the way out, she caught the tail end of two old ladies whispering near the bulletin board. "Staying with Emma Callahan. Bless her heart. One of those biker types. They never change." Emma pretended not to hear and kept walking. She told herself it didn't matter. But by the time she reached home, her chest felt tight with the weight of other people's words. The house was full of life again. Luke's laughter drifted from the yard, and Jax's voice followed, calm and low. They'd built a small birdhouse, crooked but cheerful, and nailed it to a fence post. Luke pointed proudly. "Look, Mama, Mr. Jax let me paint the roof red." "It's perfect," Emma said, kneeling beside him. "The birds will love it." Inside, the kitchen smelled like fresh bread and oil. Jax had fixed the squeaky hinge on the pantry door and replaced a burned-out bulb. "I hope you don't mind," he said, wiping his hands. "Didn't want to sit still." "I don't mind. Emma said softly. "You've done more work in 2 days than I've done in 2 years." That evening, they ate soup and cornbread by the window. Luke talked non-stop about birds, motorcycles, and superheroes. Jax listened like every word was important. When the dishes were done, Emma told Luke it was bedtime. He groaned but obeyed, hugging Jax before heading to his room. After the door closed, Jax leaned back in his chair. "You've got a good kid." "Yeah," she said quietly. "He's got a good heart. Gets it from his mom." The compliment caught her off guard. She looked down, pretending to fold a dish towel. "You don't have to say things like that. I don't say anything I don't mean." For a moment, the kitchen felt too small, the kind of stillness that carried both comfort and something unspoken. Emma broke it first. "You're welcome to stay another night or two till you figure things out." "I don't want to bring trouble." "You fixed my fence," she said. "That counts for something." Later that night, thunder rolled in the distance, but no rain came. Emma lay awake, listening to the creak of the house, the quiet hum of the fridge, and the faint sound of Jax moving in the living room. A chair scraped, footsteps paused, then silence. It was strange knowing someone else was out there, but she didn't feel unsafe. She felt steadier somehow. Then she heard a sound, low, guttural, a voice half choked. She got up and stepped softly into the hall. Jax was on the couch, thrashing, sweat darkening his shirt, his hands clenched into fists. "Stop! No, don't!" he gasped, trapped in a dream. Emma crossed quickly and touched his shoulder. "Hey," she whispered. "It's all right. You're home. You're safe." His eyes flew open, wild and wet. For a moment, he didn't seem to know where he was. Then he blinked, saw her, and slumped forward, elbows on his knees. "Sorry," he muttered. "Didn't mean to scare you." "It's okay," she said softly. "Nightmares?" He nodded. "Been having them for years. Some nights are worse." "You want to talk about it?" He shook his head. "Not much to say that'll make it better." She hesitated, then sat beside him on the edge of the couch. "Sometimes saying it out loud helps," she said. He rubbed his temples. "My brother. We were riding. He didn't make it." His voice cracked. "I was supposed to watch his back." Emma laid a hand on his arm. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He didn't look up, but she felt the tension ease under her touch. "People don't usually stay after I tell them things like that," he said. "I'm not most people," she replied. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was full of something gentle, understanding, maybe even trust. When she finally stood, he was sitting quietly, eyes closed, breathing slow. Emma walked back to her room and paused at her doorway. She looked toward the living room again and whispered a prayer she hadn't said in years. "Lord, if this man's lost, help me show him the way home." By dawn, the nightmares were gone. Jax was already outside when she woke, chopping wood like he needed to keep moving to stay whole. Emma poured 2 cups of coffee and stepped out onto the porch. He looked up and smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep," he said. "I figured," she replied, handing him a cup. "Coffee's hot." The air was crisp, the sun spilling gold over the grass. Emma took a deep breath. The world felt clean again. Neither of them saw the sheriff's car slow at the end of the gravel drive, its tires crunching softly before it rolled on. The diner smelled of bacon grease and coffee when Sheriff Collins walked in. His boots were wet from the morning dew, his hat low, and his eyes searching. Emma was pouring coffee for a trucker when she noticed him. He didn't come in often unless something serious was on his mind. He nodded her way. "Morning, Emma." She smiled politely. "Morning, Sheriff. Coffee?" "Please," he said, taking a seat at the counter. She poured him a cup and tried to move on, but he stopped her with a quiet, steady voice. "Need a word if you've got a minute?" Emma hesitated. The way he said it made her uneasy. "Sure," she said, glancing toward the other waitress. "Sally, can you cover for me a sec?" In the back corner, away from the customers, Collins folded his hands on the table. "I hear you've had company these last few days," he said. Emma froze. "Company?" "Big fella. Rides a Harley. Leather jacket. Tattoos." Her stomach sank. "He's just someone who needed help," she said. "His bike broke down in the storm." The sheriff sighed, rubbing a thumb along his cup. "Emma, you got a good heart. Everyone knows that. But you need to know who you're dealing with." She crossed her arms. "He's a veteran, Sheriff. He's been through a lot, but he's—" He cut her off. "That man's Jax Monroe." The name hit her like a thrown stone. "So?" she asked cautiously. Collins leaned in. "Used to be captain of the Hells Angels chapter out of Missoula. He's got a record. Assault, racketeering, the works. Feds have been watching him for years." Emma's mouth went dry. "That can't be right. He's kind." "Kind doesn't erase what's on file." The sheriff's voice softened. "I'm not saying he's trouble now, but a man like that doesn't just stop being what he was. Folks like him, they've got enemies, Emma. Dangerous ones." She didn't know what to say. The sound of the diner, plates clinking, voices chatting, felt far away. She tried to picture Jax swinging a chain, breaking laws, leading other men into trouble. It didn't fit the quiet man who helped Luke feed chickens or prayed softly before eating breakfast. Collins stood, placing a few bills on the table. "Just be careful. You've got that boy to think about." When her shift ended, she drove home fast. The sky had turned gray again, the kind that pressed heavy on your shoulders. She parked, stepped out, and saw Jax, working under the hood of her truck. He looked up and smiled. Grease streaked across his forearm. "Hey, Emma, almost got her running smooth. Think I fixed that rattle?" "Is it true?" she blurted. He froze. "What?" "Your name, Jax Monroe, Hells Angels." The words trembled out of her. "Is it true?" For a long time he didn't answer. He just stared at the ground, jaw tight, chest rising and falling like he'd been punched. Finally he nodded once. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It's true." Emma stepped back, heart pounding. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie," he said, voice steady but low. "You never asked. That's not the same thing." He wiped his hands on a rag and looked up at her, those gray, tired eyes now full of shame. "I walked away 2 years ago, Emma. After my brother died. I buried him and left that life behind. Been drifting ever since. I didn't come here to hurt anyone." Emma shook her head, trying to make sense of it. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because when folks hear that name, they stop seeing a man. They see a monster." The door creaked, and Luke peeked out from the porch, holding the birdhouse they'd built. "Mama, what's wrong?" "Go inside, honey," she said softly. Luke's eyes darted between them. "Did I do something?" "No, sweetheart. Just go inside." He lingered, then went. The screen door slammed shut. Emma turned back to Jax, her voice trembling. "You can't stay here, Jax. I can't risk it." He nodded once. "I understand." He walked past her toward the shed, grabbed his jacket and pulled it on. She saw the faded patch on the back, the winged skull, the red and white letters. For the first time, the sight of it frightened her. "I'll be gone before dark," he said quietly. He started the motorcycle, but before he left, he took something from his pocket, a folded note. He set it on the porch rail. "For you," he said, "and the boy." Then he rode off down the gravel road, the sound fading until only the wind remained. Emma stood on the porch for a long time before picking up the note. The paper was soft and creased, the handwriting careful. "Thank you for seeing a man when the world saw a monster." She sank onto the step, the words blurring through her tears. She wanted to be angry, but all she felt was sorrow. For him, for herself, for the cruel ways the past could chain a person down. Inside, Luke came to her side. "Mama, where's Mr. Jacks going?" "He had to leave," she whispered. "Did he do something bad?" She brushed his hair back. "A long time ago, maybe, but people can change." Luke's lip trembled. "Will he come back?" Emma looked out at the empty road. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But we can pray he finds peace." That night, the wind picked up again, scattering leaves across the yard. Emma sat at the table with Jax's note before her, reading it over and over. Each time, the same thought returned. Maybe the sheriff was wrong. Maybe the world was wrong. Maybe this man had already changed, and no one had given him the chance to prove it. She folded the note carefully, slipped it into her Bible, and whispered into the quiet house, "God, please watch over him." Outside, the night stretched long and lonely. But deep in Emma's heart, the smallest spark of hope refused to go out. The morning after Jax left, Emma woke to silence. Not the comforting kind, the heavy kind, the kind that settles over a house and reminds you something's missing. The chair by the table sat empty. The tools he'd borrowed were neatly stacked, and the shed door hung slightly open, swaying in the breeze. Even Luke noticed right away. "Where's Mr. Jacks?" he asked, still in his pajamas, hair sticking up like straw. Emma poured him cereal, forcing a calm smile. "He had to go take care of something, sweetheart." "Is he coming back?" She hesitated. "I don't know, honey." Luke looked down at his bowl. "But we were going to build another birdhouse." Emma's chest tightened. "I know, baby. Maybe someday." After Luke left for school, the house felt too big. She cleaned the kitchen, folded laundry, even scrubbed the porch railing, anything to keep her hands busy and her thoughts from drifting toward the road. Every now and then she caught herself listening for the low rumble of a motorcycle that never came. By the second week, the whispers around town had quieted, but the emptiness hadn't. The birdhouse Luke and Jax had made swung gently on the fence post, its red roof bright against the gray sky. Emma found herself staring at it often, wondering if Jax had really been the dangerous man the sheriff described, or just another soul trying to outrun his past. One afternoon, after delivering pies to the church bake sale, Emma stopped by the Veterans Center to drop off some leftover meals from the diner. She'd done it before. The center served as a safe place for former soldiers trying to get back on their feet. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and disinfectant. Men sat in metal chairs, talking softly or staring at their boots. "Thanks for bringing the food, Emma," said Martha, the director, a kind woman with a weary smile. "Anytime," Emma said. "How's everyone doing today?" "About the same," Martha sighed. "We've got a new guy in the garage program. Keeps to himself. Good worker, though. Lost someone close, I think." Emma was about to nod and leave when she glanced through the glass door that led to the maintenance bay. There, bent over a tool chest, was a familiar shape. Broad shoulders, dark hair tied back, and a leather bracelet on one wrist. Her breath caught. Jax. For a moment she just stood there, frozen. He was sweeping the floor, head down, unaware of her watching. He looked thinner, wearier, but the same steady focus was there. Martha followed her gaze. "You know him?" Emma's voice was quiet. "Yeah, I think I do." "Nice guy," Martha said. "Never complains, always early. Doesn't talk much, but he's polite. You should have seen how he fixed the generator. Thing runs like new." Emma's throat tightened. "Does he live here?" Out back in the bunks, Martha said. Why? No reason, Emma murmured. She walked toward the door before she could change her mind. When Jax looked up and saw her, his eyes widened. The broom stilled in his hands. Emma, he said, barely above a whisper. Hi, she said softly. Didn't expect to see you here. He wiped his hands on his jeans. Didn't expect you to look. She smiled faintly. Guess I'm stubborn that way. For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of tools and muffled voices filled the background. Finally, Jax cleared his throat. I took a job here a few days after I left. Needed to keep my head straight. Martha's been good to me. I'm glad, she said. You look tired. He gave a small laugh. Been earning my keep. Keeps me from thinking too much. Emma stepped closer. You could have told me where you were. He shrugged. Didn't think you'd want to know. I did, she said quietly. We all did. Jax looked away, eyes glassy. Your boy, he's okay? He misses you, she said. Keeps asking when you'll come back. He swallowed hard. Tell him I said to keep feeding the birds. She nodded, unsure what else to say. Then she looked around the garage, the old radios, the smell of oil, the faded flag pinned to the wall, and felt something in her soften. You seem safe here. Yeah, he said. Safer than I've been in years. When Emma left, she turned back once at the door. Jax was already sweeping again, his head bowed, the motion slow and steady. That night, she told Luke about finding him. Did he say hi? Luke asked, eyes wide. He did, she said, brushing his hair. He's working at the Veterans Center. Can we go see him? Maybe, Emma said. We'll see. The next week, she found herself driving back there with a tray of cookies from the diner. Martha greeted her with a knowing smile. He's in the back. Jax looked up as Emma entered the garage. This time he smiled, small but real. Brought you something, she said, holding out the cookies. He raised a brow. Bribing me into conversation? Maybe. They sat on overturned buckets, sharing cookies and coffee from paper cups. He told her more about his brother, about the day everything went wrong. She told him about Luke's school projects, the endless diner shifts, and how the chickens were laying again. For the first time since he'd left, the air between them felt easy. Before she left, she said softly, You're welcome to come by sometime. Luke would like that. He hesitated, then nodded. Maybe I will. When Emma drove home that evening, the sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky in amber and pink. The road looked long and empty, but she didn't feel alone anymore. For the first time in weeks, she believed in something she couldn't see yet, that maybe broken people could still find their way back to the light. And though she didn't say it out loud, she knew this wasn't the end of Jax Monroe's story. It was just the beginning of a different kind of road. The following days passed with slow, gentle rhythm. The diner stayed busy, the weather stayed cool, and life kept on moving. Though Emma's thoughts often drifted back to the Veterans Center. She told herself she was just making sure Jax was all right, that it wasn't about her. But her heart always beat faster when she drove past the old brick building on her way home. One Thursday afternoon, she finally gave in and stopped again. She'd baked a small batch of oatmeal cookies, half for Luke's class, half for the vets, or so she told herself. When she walked in, the scent of oil and coffee hit her. The air buzzed with the sound of tools clinking and quiet laughter. Jax was there, crouched beside a broken lawnmower, his hands black with grease. He looked up when she called his name softly. His face lit up in a way she hadn't seen since that night at her house. Emma, he said, standing and wiping his hands. You're back. She smiled shyly. I brought cookies. Figured the crew might need a sugar break. He grinned. You always bring trouble wrapped in kindness. Is that a complaint? No, ma'am, he said, still smiling. Never. She handed him the tin and glanced around. A few of the other men, gray-haired, weathered veterans with kind eyes, waved their thanks. Martha gave Emma a thumbs up from the office window. They sat on overturned paint buckets in the corner of the garage, sharing cookies and paper cups of coffee. For a few minutes, they didn't talk about anything heavy, just small things. The weather, Luke's birdhouse, how Jax had fixed the center's generator. Then, when the laughter faded, Jax's tone grew quiet. I owe you an apology, he said. For what? For not telling you who I was, he said. And for leaving like I did. You didn't deserve that. Emma looked at him for a long moment. His face was open now. No walls, no hard edges, just regret. You were scared, she said gently. And I was too, but I think maybe we were both wrong about each other. He tilted his head. How's that? I thought you needed saving, she said. But maybe I did too. He looked down at his hands, then met her gaze. You've got more strength than you know. And you've got more goodness than you believe, she said. They held each other's eyes for a heartbeat too long before Emma cleared her throat and looked away. Anyway, she said quickly, Luke's been asking if you'll come by sometime. He says the birds miss you. Jax chuckled. That kid's got a heart bigger than Montana. He gets that from his father, Emma said softly, surprising herself. At least I like to think so. Jax's expression softened. You ever hear from him? No, she said. He left when Luke was 2. I don't think he even remembers what Luke looks like. And that's okay. I'm sorry, Jax said. She shrugged, smiling faintly. Don't be. Life gives you storms and sunshine. You learn to love both. A small silence fell between them. Comfortable this time. By late afternoon, Emma helped Jax clean up the garage, folding rags and stacking tools. He moved with steady patience, his hands sure, his motions almost graceful despite the bulk of his frame. There was peace in the way he worked, and she realized that for all the things he'd lost, this simple work, honest labor, gave him a piece of himself back. When they stepped outside, the air was golden with sunset. The veteran's flag flapped gently in the breeze. I don't deserve how kind you've been, Jax said, his voice low. Emma turned to him. Everyone deserves kindness, Jax, especially the ones who think they don't. He looked away, blinking hard. You keep saying stuff like that, and I might start believing you. Good, she said softly. That's the point. They stood there for a moment, watching the light fade. Finally, Jax spoke again. I'm not ready to come back yet, he said. But maybe you and Luke could come here next week. We're fixing up an old truck for one of the guys. He'd love to show Luke the ropes. Emma smiled. We'd like that. The next week, she kept that promise. Luke ran around the garage wide-eyed, thrilled by every spark and wrench twist. The veterans teased him good-naturedly, calling him Little Mechanic. Jax stayed near, patient and proud, showing Luke how to sand an old fender. Emma stood nearby, watching, the laughter, the shared purpose, the light on Jax's face as he taught her son something new. And deep in her heart, she realized that trust wasn't built overnight. It was built moment by moment, in every word, every shared meal, every act of gentle courage. As they said goodbye that evening, Luke hugged Jax tightly. You'll come visit soon, right? Jax nodded. You bet, kiddo. Emma met his eyes. You mean it? He nodded again, this time with quiet certainty. Yeah, he said. I think it's time I stop running from good things. When Emma drove home that night, the stars were out, and the sky stretched wide and endless above the road. She rolled down the window, let the wind in, and smiled. Somewhere between loss and forgiveness, she thought, people learned to trust again. And for the first time in years, Emma Callahan felt like she was finally doing just that. The town square came alive, that weekend, filled with music, laughter, and the smell of grilled corn and barbecue. It was the annual Harvest Festival, and every shop window was dressed with pumpkins and ribbons. Children ran between stalls, faces painted like foxes and butterflies. For the first time in years, Emma felt like the season carried a bit of joy again. She'd told Jax about the festival during their last visit to the Veterans Center, not expecting him to come. But as she stood near the homemade pie booth, handing out slices of apple crumble, a familiar rumble rose over the crowd. The sound of a motorcycle, deep and steady. She turned and saw him riding down the street, helmet off, hair tied back, eyes scanning the crowd until they found her. He parked at the edge of the square and walked over. He wasn't wearing leather this time, just a plaid shirt and faded jeans. Still, people noticed. Conversations paused. Emma could feel the weight of small-town eyes turning. But Jax didn't seem to care. "Didn't think you'd actually come," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He grinned. "You said there'd be pie. I'm a man of my word." Luke, who'd been at the ring toss, came running. "Mr. Jax, you came!" He grabbed Jax's hand without hesitation. "Come see the big pumpkin. It's as tall as me." Jax chuckled. "Lead the way, partner." As the two disappeared toward the display, Emma felt something in her chest unclench. He was here. And for once, people could see the man she knew. Gentle, steady, human. They spent the afternoon together. Luke convinced Jax to try the shooting gallery, and he won a stuffed bear without missing once. "You're like a cowboy," Luke said proudly. "Nah," Jax said with a smile. "Just practiced in another lifetime." They ate corn dogs and lemonade, wandered through booths selling handmade quilts and jam, and even watched the local kids' band play. For a while, everything felt normal. Better than normal, like the weight of the past had lifted. But not everyone saw it that way. When Jax went to buy raffle tickets, two men standing near the fire truck display stopped talking and stared. They wore matching denim vests with small patches on the back. No big logos, but the kind of thing that made Emma's stomach drop. They weren't from town. Their eyes followed Jax, cold and sharp. Jax noticed too. His body stiffened, his shoulders straightening like he was bracing for something. Emma touched his arm. "Do you know them?" He nodded slightly, voice low. "Yeah, they used to ride with me." "What do they want?" He gave a small, humorless smile. "To remind me nobody leaves for free." Emma's heart pounded. "Should we go?" He shook his head. "No, we stay. Not gonna let them ruin this." So they stayed. Jax helped Luke carve a small pumpkin, even though Emma could tell he was watching every shadow. When the sun dipped low and lanterns lit up, the two men finally disappeared into the crowd, leaving behind nothing but tension and the faint smell of cigarette smoke. As the music started again, Jax's hand shook slightly when he lifted his cup of cider. Emma noticed but said nothing. She simply reached over and laid her hand on his. His fingers tightened around hers, steadying. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For making me feel like a person again." The band struck up a familiar tune, and someone called for a dance. Luke clapped his hands. "Mama, dance with Mr. Jax!" Emma laughed. "Oh, I don't think—" But Jax stood and offered his hand. "Come on," he said softly. "It's just a dance." She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. They stepped into the soft glow of string lights. The song was slow, sweet, an old country tune about finding peace after years on the road. Jax's hand rested lightly at her back. For a few minutes, the world around them faded. There was only the music, the rhythm, and the quiet warmth between them. When the song ended, he smiled down at her, and she saw the man he could have been all along. Not the captain of anything, not the outcast, just a man learning how to breathe again. Later, as they walked back to her truck, Luke holding the stuffed bear tight, Emma glanced at Jax. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said. "For the first time in a long while." They loaded into the truck, the glow of the festival fading behind them. But as they turned onto the dark highway, Emma noticed something in the mirror. A pair of headlights following, too close, too steady. She slowed slightly. The car did too. Jax noticed, his posture stiffening. "Keep driving," he said quietly. "Don't turn yet." Her pulse quickened. "Who is it?" "Could be nobody," he said. "Or it could be somebody who doesn't like seeing me happy." After a few tense minutes, the car turned off down another road. Jax let out a long breath, then looked over at Emma and forced a smile. "Guess I'm just jumpy." But Emma could tell he didn't believe that. Neither did she. When they reached her driveway, he walked them to the porch. Luke was already half asleep, clutching his bear. "Thank you for today," Emma said. "It meant a lot to him. To me too." He nodded. "It meant a lot to me too." As she turned to go inside, he hesitated. "Emma," he said softly, "I want to believe that this, you, Luke, all of it, can be real. But my past, it doesn't just disappear." She met his eyes. "Maybe it doesn't. But maybe that's what makes grace mean something." He didn't answer, but the look on his face said everything. When Emma went inside, she peeked once through the window. Jack stood under the porch light for a long moment, staring down the quiet road, the same road where the headlights had disappeared, before finally walking into the darkness. And though the night was peaceful, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that trouble had found them again. The following week felt like a blessing after the festival. The skies stayed bright, the air crisp with autumn, and for a while, Emma let herself believe things were finally turning toward peace. Jax had been stopping by the house more often, helping with small repairs, joining them for supper, and laughing with Luke like he'd always belonged there. On Monday morning, she found him in the yard, repairing her old swing. "You don't have to keep fixing everything you see," she teased. He grinned, tightening a bolt. "Can't help it. I see something busted, I want to set it right." Luke came running out the door, holding a paper from school. "Mr. Jax, we're having a Father-Son Day on Friday. You gotta come with me." Jax froze, wrench in hand. "You sure your mom's okay with that?" Emma hesitated. The invitation tugged at her heart. "If you want to go, I think it'd mean a lot to him." Jax looked uncertain. "Emma, people there know who I am, or what I was. I don't want to make things hard for him." She shook her head. "You'd make things better, not worse." He studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. "All right then, if the boss insists." When Friday came, Luke could barely sit still. He wore his best flannel shirt, the one with the missing button that Jax had mended. Emma watched from the porch as Jax rolled up on his Harley, freshly washed, polished to a shine. He'd trimmed his beard, wore a clean button-down, and looked less like a biker and more like a man trying to start over. "Ready, partner?" he said, offering Luke a small helmet. Luke nodded eagerly. "Can I ride with you?" Emma's breath caught, but Jax reassured her. "We'll go slow, Emma, I promise." She nodded, trying not to let her worry show. As the engine started and they pulled out, she felt a strange mixture of fear and pride. It was a sight she wouldn't forget, her son on the back of a Harley, laughing under the wide Montana sky. At the school, the event went smoother than anyone expected. The kids were fascinated by the motorcycle, and the dads asked questions. Even the teachers seemed charmed. Jax helped Luke build a small wooden birdhouse at one of the craft tables, guiding his hands carefully. When they wrote their names across the bottom, Luke and Jax, the boy grinned ear to ear. Emma arrived near the end of the event, just in time to see them laughing together. For a moment, she felt her heart swell with something too big to name. Maybe, she thought, this is what grace looks like. That night, she made stew for supper. The three of them ate around the table, the warmth of family filling the small house. Luke fell asleep early, tired from the excitement, and Emma stood by the sink rinsing dishes as Jax lingered nearby. "Today was good," he said softly. "It was," she agreed. "He's lucky to have you." Jax shook his head. "I'm the lucky one." He hesitated before speaking again. "Emma, I don't deserve this, any of it, but I want to keep trying, to be better, to make this right." She looked at him, her heart trembling. "You already are." He smiled, small, quiet, real. The peace of that night lingered like a prayer, until it was broken. Just before dawn, a sharp crack split the quiet. Emma bolted upright, heart pounding. For a moment she thought it was thunder, but then she smelled it, the bitter, smoky scent of something burning. She rushed to the window. Her mailbox was on fire, flames licking at the wooden post. "Jax!" she screamed. He was already outside, barefoot, throwing a bucket of water onto the fire. The flames hissed, then died, leaving a charred hole in the night. He crouched, picking up a scrap of paper from the ground. Emma stepped closer and saw black letters scrawled across it. "Traitors burn, too." Her stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" Jax's face hardened. "It means someone knows where I am." She stared at him, voice shaking. "Those men from the festival?" "Maybe, or someone worse." "Worse?" He rubbed a hand over his jaw, eyes scanning the dark tree line. "When I left the Angels, not everyone wanted me gone. Some folks took it personal. Guess they still do." Emma's throat tightened. "They came here, to my house." "I'm sorry," he said, voice breaking. "I never wanted this near you or Luke." She looked at him, tears stinging her eyes. "You brought danger to my door." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm leaving." "Leaving? It's the only way to keep you safe." She grabbed his arm. "Jax, no." He pulled away gently, his expression filled with regret. "Emma, listen to me. I care about you both more than you know, but if I stay, they'll come back. And next time, they won't just burn a mailbox." Emma shook her head. "You can't just run again." He looked at her sadly. "It's what I'm good at." He turned toward his bike, the faint orange glow of sunrise painting the sky. She followed him to the porch, her voice trembling. "Please, Jax, don't go." He paused, helmet in hand. "If I could stay, I would." "Then stay anyway." He met her eyes. "It's safer this way." The engine started with a roar. The sound echoed through the valley, then faded into the distance until only the quiet wind remained. Emma stood there long after he was gone, her nightgown whipping in the cold air. When she finally went inside, she found Luke's birdhouse on the table, the one they'd built together. It had fallen from the shelf during the commotion, its roof chipped but still holding. She picked it up gently, tracing her fingers over the faded paint. The house was small but strong, scarred but still standing. And as the first light of morning filled the room, Emma whispered, "God, bring him back safe." Outside, smoke curled into the dawn sky, rising like a prayer that refused to fade. The days after Jax left felt long and gray. The laughter that used to fill the house was gone, and the silence pressed heavy against the walls. At the diner, people still whispered, but Emma stopped caring. She worked, came home, and prayed. Luke asked about Jax every night, and every time she told him the same soft lie. "He's safe, sweetheart." But deep down she wasn't sure. One evening, as the sun bled red over the mountains, Emma walked down the road to check the mailbox Jax had rebuilt before he left. The burned post was gone, replaced by a new one, strong, sturdy, hand-sanded smooth. Her eyes filled. When she got home, the phone rang. Sheriff Collins' voice came through, quieter than usual. "Emma?" he said. "That biker friend of yours, he turned himself in this morning. Said he's testifying against the Angels. You should know. It's going to take guts to do what he's doing." Her knees went weak. "He turned himself in?" "Yeah," the sheriff said. "He said you gave him something to believe in." After hanging up, Emma sat by the window holding Luke's birdhouse. The night air smelled faintly of smoke and pine, and she whispered through her tears, "Be brave, Jax. God's not done with you yet." Outside, the horizon glowed, not with fire this time, but with the first light of hope. Emma had never been inside a jail before. The air smelled of disinfectant and metal, and every step echoed too loud. She clutched Luke's drawing in her hand, a picture of a big man with wings, and the words, "You're our hero, Mr. Jax." Her palms were sweating when a guard led her to the visitation booth. Through the thick glass, Jax looked thinner, but somehow stronger. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "Didn't think you'd come," he said through the phone. "I had to," Emma answered, voice trembling. "You kept your promise." He smiled faintly. "They're calling me a rat, but I don't care. Maybe now some good'll come of what I did." Emma pressed the drawing against the glass. "Luke made this for you. He misses you every day." Jax swallowed hard, eyes shining. "Tell him I'm proud of him. Tell him I'll ride with him again someday." "You already have," she said softly. They sat in silence for a moment, their hands resting on opposite sides of the cold glass. No words could fill what stood between them, but faith did. When the guard said time was up, Emma whispered, "You're not alone, Jax. God's with you." He smiled, tears glinting. "Guess you were right all along, Emma. Grace finds even the roughest roads." She walked out into the sunlight, the drawing pressed to her chest, and for the first time, she truly believed it. Spring came early that year, melting the last of the snow and washing the fields green again. Life at the diner picked up, and Emma smiled more easily now. People still talked, but their words carried respect instead of scorn. The local paper even ran a story about Jax's testimony. Former biker helps take down crime ring. Emma cut it out and kept it in her Bible, right beside his note. One afternoon, as Luke worked on his homework, the mail arrived. Among the bills was a small, crumpled envelope with rough handwriting she recognized instantly. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Emma," it began, "they moved me to a halfway house in Billings. I've got a job fixing engines for other vets. I'm learning how to live slow. Tell Luke I still think about our birdhouse. Hope the birds came back." Tears blurred her vision. She read the letter aloud to Luke, who grinned wide. "He's free, Mama. Can we visit?" A week later, they did. The shop was small, warm, and filled with the sound of tools and laughter. Jax looked up from under a car hood, surprise giving way to joy. Luke ran straight into his arms, and for a long moment, they just held each other. "You did it," Emma whispered. Jax smiled, wiping his hands. "Couldn't have without you." The smell of oil, the hum of the shop, and the sunshine through the window made everything feel right. The road behind them was rough, but ahead, it stretched wide and clear. A new road, paved with forgiveness, faith, and the steady hope of home. Summer came golden and wide across the Montana Valley. The morning sun poured over the hills, painting the grass with light. The air smelled of dust, pine, and freedom. The kind Jax Monroe had spent his whole life chasing, but never found until now. Today wasn't about gangs or running. It was about redemption. The veterans' charity ride he helped organize filled the town square with laughter and the steady growl of motorcycles. Emma and Luke stood near the edge of the crowd, both beaming with pride. The flags fluttered on the bikes, each one telling a story of pain, survival, and second chances. When Jax stepped from the garage, wiping his hands, the noise seemed to hush for a moment. He wore a clean denim jacket with a new patch stitched across the back. Faith Riders, freedom through grace. His eyes found Emma's, and his smile, gentle and certain, reached all the way to his soul. "You made it," he said. "Wouldn't miss it," Emma replied. Luke ran ahead and hugged him tightly, holding up a small sign painted in blue. "Go, Mr. Jax." Jax laughed, crouching to eye level. "You've got the best handwriting in Montana, kiddo." The loudspeaker crackled. "Riders, mount up! Let's ride for those still finding their way home." Jax turned to Emma, offering her a spare helmet. "Ride with me?" She hesitated for only a heartbeat before nodding. "Always." The engine roared to life beneath them, the sound rolling like thunder through the valley. As they rode, the wind whipped through Emma's hair, and she closed her eyes, feeling the road hum beneath them. Luke waved from the roadside, his laughter carrying in the wind. The convoy stretched behind them, dozens of riders united by grace instead of fear. At the mountain overlook, they stopped to pray. Jax bowed his head. "Thank you, God, for second chances, and for angels who never gave up on me." Emma leaned close, whispering, "You were never a monster, Jax. Just a man God wasn't finished with yet." He looked at her, eyes bright. "And you were the angel who proved it." As they rode again, the sun dipped low, casting everything in gold. The engines rumbled like a hymn, echoing across the hills. Ahead, the horizon stretched wide and endless, a road washed clean by mercy and love. Thank you for listening. Stories connect us in the most unexpected ways. If you felt that spark today, make sure you're subscribed. I share a new one daily, and the next might change your day.